back to this notion, which you guys shine a lot of light on, about how companies often feel they can't afford it. They can't afford to be focusing on sustainability. How should we think about that?
Yeah, I'll try to do this quickly because this is like my favorite and most hated topic in my life, because I get asked, well, doesn't it cost too much? How can we do this? Like daily for 20 years. I'm not really exaggerating. Through my interviews, talks, comes up every time. And so there's two kind of levels to talk about this. And let me, I guess, start with the macro. It's used often at the kind of economy level. You'll hear people say, if we tackle climate change, it'll destroy the economy. It's the same argument as within companies, but it starts up there. And that's just increasingly ludicrous. And Paul and I kind of make the case that we've hit this tipping point now where it's far more expensive to do nothing on something like climate change than do something, for two reasons. The cost of doing nothing just keeps rising because it's incredibly expensive to have a third of Pakistan underwater or California burning, et cetera. And on the cost side, renewables, EVs, all that stuff has gotten so much cheaper that we're stupid for not doing it. So that equation has really changed. And so when you hear someone say this will destroy the economy, do not listen to that. This is how we grow the economy. Any economy that's stuck on fossil fuels in 10, 20 years is in trouble, because we're just now at better technologies. It'd be like saying 30 years ago, I'm going to keep my typewriter. I don't get this whole PC thing, right? So there's the macro level. And then this is a longer conversation about what I see in companies about how they make investment decisions. And the short version is we use tools like return on investment or internal rate of return. And we say, if we put money in, what's the rate it comes back? And what we're good at is saying how much cash comes back, right? If we invest in this change in business, how much will we save? What we're not good at all is measuring the additional value a something creates that it's hard to put a number on, right? Your employees are happier, you've pleased your customers, the communities are happier, you're more resilient, you're more flexible as a business. There's lots of benefits to something like putting renewables in your business that aren't just how much did you pay for energy. And we're really bad at that, consistently bad at it. And, I can give you kind of examples of what that does to decision-making in businesses, but it is a kind of a fatal flaw that we don't really get the value we're creating. So you end up with this costs more. And it's like, but what do you mean? Like cost more versus what? What's the benefit of doing it? And we see these kind of things in our own lives, right? If you just took a short-term cost benefit, you'd probably never go to college. It's like 4 years of just spending money without making any money, right? Like there's all sorts of things you wouldn't do. Wouldn't have a kid. They're really expensive for, a number of years. So I think it is about taking a longer view of costs and benefits, and we're getting better at it, but we need more work.
Okay, so here we are with one of your, right at the doorstep of one of your concepts that you write about, blowing up boundaries.
Yeah.
Talk to me about that.
Yeah. So, in the order of battle that we kind of determined, how do you build a company that improves the well-being of everyone they touch, which I'm not sure I've said yet as kind of that's what a net positive company looks like.
Circle back to that. Give us that. Yeah. I know where you're going. Give us that in a nutshell.
Yeah. It is the world better off, but more specifically, it's, are you improving the well-being of everybody that you impact? And that is much broader, especially for big companies, than just your employees and your customers. You have a stake in how does your sector impact the world? What's the policy positions of your industry and your company on the kinds of policies we need to reduce carbon or help improve nutrition or whatever the category you're in is? What's your contribution to these systems that overconsume, that we don't have recycling for? There's these bigger questions, right? And the smarter companies, the leading edge ones are diving into those. And it's why at core Net Positive is so much about partnerships, because the bigger questions you can't tackle alone. There's no way, no matter how big you are, no company's big enough. And so that's how you get to this kind of definition of how do we work together to improve the well-being of everyone. So where were we going with that? Besides, what was the question?
You had, I know that you have 5.
Oh, the boundaries, right? Yeah. The breaking boundaries. Yeah. So in building this kind of net positive business, we start with purpose, your own and the company's, but kind of right after that is what kind of goals, what's your vision, where are you shooting for? And why we talk about blowing up boundaries is that you start with your own business. You do. You can't start with, we're solving hunger, we're solving waste. You start with something like, can we make this factory zero waste? But the reason you're doing that, or the reason you're setting a net zero carbon goal, is because there's a larger problem. You're bringing outside in, the world into business. And for really, I think for many, many decades or maybe centuries, all you really needed to worry about was your own, kind of four walls, because there weren't really constraints yet in the world. It seemed like infinite resources, but we're kind of bouncing up against the limits. So there has to be this outside in view. And that means blowing up your mental boundaries about, when I think of my own factor, my own operation, what am I thinking about? Is it just the operation, or how it starts to tie into the broader world? And so you start with setting these big goals because there's larger problems, and finding ways to make it more profitable. If you make a factory zero waste, it tends to make it more efficient. You tend to save money. And then you're ready to say, okay, for us to really get to zero waste, we got to think about our suppliers and our customers, and we need partnerships to solve the waste problem in our sector or in this particular material. So you have to start with blowing up the boundaries in your head about where are we and what are we focusing on, so that you can set really aggressive goals for yourself and then be ready for the bigger conversations.